The Popo, Ryan Tillman, let him have it. Savage on the set, AJ. What up, boy? Ryan Tillman, let him have it. Savage on the set. Oh no, it's the Popo.
Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the It's Needed podcast, where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement in the community. It's your boy Ryan Tillman, founder of Breaking Bears United, and I am joined by the light-skinned wonder himself, Mr. Oh No, it's the Popo.
Yes, sir. What's up,
What's
brother?
up, Brody? That shirt looking a little small, bro. What's going
I'm just
on? You in
looking
the
big,
gym,
that's
or is
it.
it just extra small?
That's it. This might be a
Yeah.
2X actually. Billy looking like he about to go fishing with somebody's
We-
dad is about to take his son fishing.
This is my forget you money shirt.
We
you
are.
know?
Well, that's what happens when you become Big Shot Billy. You
I don't
just
have the
wear
money
whatever
yet,
you
but I
want.
got the shirt. you know?
Hey, when you become Big Shot Billy, bro, you can wear whatever the heck you want to do. You know, what I'm
Billy,
saying?
you do know you got a new nickname, right?
Do I? What is it?
Oh,
Big
you
Shot
clearly
Billy.
didn't listen to the podcast. So yeah.
Well, I heard the end of the last one that was saying you guys are on LinkedIn looking for a new producer.
Yeah, I'm actually accepting applications right now, guys. So,
Big
you know,
shot
Big
Billy.
Shot Billy is, Big Shot
know.
Billy is.
There's been a few big shoots that all wanted to schedule on Mondays, so I'm sorry I've
Mhm.
been gone.
Big shoots. He
Yeah,
got some big shoots. He had the crib just eating Cheetos, catching up on Netflix.
At home.
he's like,
Yeah, Ozark came out, so I had to stay home.
That was
I had
good.
a binge watch.
I haven't finished it, but it's one of my.
Let me
top
tell you what
shows.
happened at the end.
Oh, good. I hate watching shows.
Shoot, we started a day. Look at people get so excited to see Billy.
Oh, people commenting.
They don't never see when they don't never.
What's up, Jess?
Oh man, they don't never be this excited to see me or AJ.
Oh, that's so funny.
Me and my wife started Ozark, and then I think we made it to like episode or season 3, I think.
Season 4 just came out. It came out in 2 parts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It was either the end of season 2 or the end of season 3. But you know what I will tell you guys that you guys need to watch? What's that show called on Netflix?
Stranger
Look it up
Things
right
comes out next week. Just throwing it out there.
That'll be good.
I've never watched Stranger Things before. Is it pretty good?
Hey, they
I really
said
like it.
you didn't like it?
No, I really like it.
Oh, they said that they've spent an estimate $1 million per episode on this new season. The last episode is 3.5 hours long.
Wow.
What?
I wonder
Yeah.
what they're gonna go with this, because I've loved what they've done so far, but
I can't
how do you
wait.
end this?
I
you know?
can't wait. I mean, I'm
What
just gonna put
what
this
kind of
out
show
there.
is it? Is it like a sci-fi or what?
I'm gonna get some.
Yeah, classic 80s where the kids ride their bikes around the neighborhood, sci-fi.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
I mean, it's a little more than that. Like,
Well, there's more. I was just giving the broad genre,
it's
very
just
broad.
kids, they be
genre.
riding their bike around the neighborhood, and
Like
that's
some
pretty
aliens or
much it.
something. I don't know.
Sometimes they walk around. Billy reminds
Billy
me of Billy
reminds me of
Madison.
Billy Madison.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Nudie Magazine Day. You guys have seen the movie, right?
We have seen the movie. I've seen
That's
the movie.
good.
I don't know if apparently Ryan doesn't watch movies or shows. So
No.
I do watch shows. That's why I'm looking to see what this other show is that I just got done finished watching.
By the time you find it, it's okay.
Yeah, we're gonna be whatever.
yeah, we got 3
anyway.
comments about Ryan being on his phone already. So
Yeah. AJ, I
look.
feel like you're on dad level, dad level 100 with your mowing skills and you're building sheds. Incredible stuff.
Yeah,
Wait,
I'm
what?
getting there, man. I'm getting there.
I'm
Your
missing?
wife did 3 lines.
Listen,
And I was
let's talk
forget
about
it, right?
let's talk about that. Yeah, let's talk about that. All right.
That was
So
hilarious.
Well,
listen,
I missed all of this. So,
So
what
first
was this on
off,
stories or
Instagram,
we are
right?
new to the neighborhood. All right, we'll just keep that out there. All right, we're new to the neighborhood. It's a nice neighborhood.
Still proving yourselves.
Still, you gotta. And we've had a bad start. All right, we've had a rough start. All right, we moved in, and
There goes the
recycling
neighborhood.
bin tipped over at one point. It was blowing trash in the neighbor's yard. They was texting me come get your box out of my backyard. I don't want to build a clubhouse. And then at one point, our trash didn't get picked up, and it's trash. I mean, we had a rough start. All right, but it's a learning curve for us. All right, but one thing that I told myself was I'm gonna keep the yard up. All right, that's my thing. I'm gonna go out there, put my headphones in, I'm gonna edge, I'm gonna cut the grass, I'm gonna trim the shrubs up, all of that, right? Plant some nice flowers, make it pretty, right? So I go to DC for police week, and it had rained a lot during that time. And and this is all on me. I didn't cut the grass before I left. I wasn't thinking, right? I was focused on the trip. So on my way back, I get a call from my wife, and she's like, "Why the lawnmower keep shutting off?" And I'm like, "Ooh." Red flag. My wife is cutting the grass. All right. So I'm like, I don't know. Like, did it rain? She's like, yeah, it rained the other day. And I was like, well, the grass is probably wet, and the grass is probably too high. You got to adjust the lawnmower higher. So she's like, all right, I'll figure it out. She texts me 5 minutes later. She's like, I gave up. And I'm like, you gave up? Like, you
These
can't
one
just give
sentences
up.
are never good from a wife.
Yeah,
You can't give up
negative.
just cutting the grass, right?
Negative.
So I'm like, all right. So, I get in town that night around like 11 o'clock. It's dark outside. Just go home, crash, right? Go upstairs, lay in bed, crash. I wake up the next morning. I go to let the dog out. It's a maze in my backyard. Like, she like cut a path from like the shed to like one corner of the yard, and then it's like 3 random lines that they're not even like together to like spaced out. So
You need like a tic-tac-toe board.
I'm looking, I'm
Oh
like,
my-
oh. I'm
Is-
like, I
this
just
is the front
know.
of this is the front of your house.
So it was in the backyard. Thank goodness
Oh.
it was in the backyard. But still, people could. I just know we are like a meme somewhere. Like some closed Facebook community group was like talking about the new neighbors. So if y'all listen to this, I'm sorry, it's taken care of now. But yeah. So I'll be on my grass cutting, man. Diagonal cuts. Out in Cali, it's too hot for y'all to go grow grass. So here we got beautiful
No,
green
that's Eric
grass.
doing
We
it.
cut it.
Yeah. down here.
No, we pay people to do it though.
Yeah, we kind of.
Yeah.
Bro, I was just having a conversation with
That's
some
true.
dads this morning at my son's. They had like a little picnic day at the school, at the park or whatever, for like it's like the last week of school. And so I was talking to some of the dads and they were just talking about how everybody's so mad at Californians because we're just driving the property value up everywhere.
Yeah.
And so like they were saying, he was just like, man,
That's Cali's fault.
Well, it
they're
is-
selling their home and then buying out of state in cash.
and that is,
Ah,
and so he
yes.
was saying like, because we have for example, I have friends of mine that could sell their house right now and probably walk away with $1 million in the bank just because that's how much their properties have gone up so
Yeah.
much. So imagine taking that $1 million and moving to Kansas City or Tennessee
right.
and buying a house that's $300,000-$400,000 just all cash. So
Yeah.
it's driving everything up. So that's why a lot of people are kind of pissed with Californians right now because
Are you getting that in Ohio?
I mean, the market is crazy everywhere, but here recently the interest rates are going back up. So you're going to start to see it kind of curve back.
But are you seeing Californians come in? I know it's more of like Texas, Florida, Tennessee problem, but
I ain't really seen no Californians. I ain't
pretty
seen
soon I'm gonna need y'all
not too many
pretty soon-
Subarus around here, and
pretty soon I'm gonna need y'all to go ahead and make
Those are
some room for the
Colorado.
Tillman family, bro. The way crypto's been performing, we're gonna have to.
oh, because that's like what, a 47% drop or something like that.
oh yeah, major. So when me and
Well,
Ryan were
let's talk
bragging
about it because y'all trying to sell me on this cryptocurrency for the longest time. Let's talk
Yeah,
about
man,
it.
come on in. The water's great.
I'm like a fiend though, bro. Like, hey, you got some more money so I can buy some more? 'Cause I'm like a fiend, bro. Oh yeah. it's
Should I buy
crazy.
some now?
You absolutely.
I'm not
should.
giving any advice.
Yeah.
You absolutely
Oh.
should, yeah.
What's
But
going on in Billy's life? Let's catch up with Billy. I feel like when he past 3 podcasts, ain't even been here.
I know. It feels like forever. Good. We got our 2 baby boys are healthy and awesome. Our
Mhm.
littlest is now running around everywhere. Like great walker. He's just over 1 year old. And the last few Mondays I've missed is because I've actually had police recruitment video shoots. So
There you
it's
go.
been really fun. Yeah, really fun working with a few like local police departments and shooting like their SWAT team and patrol. And it's
You shooting
just still
SWAT
law
teams,
enforcement
whoa.
related.
Billy trying to
With cameras.
Billy's trying to kick me to the curb, bro. If
I
y'all
was
didn't know this,
trying. Yeah. Billy is
Billy
is
trying
in
to fire,
full.
Billy trying to fire me, bro.
Well, I mean, you put my job up like on,
Indeed.
LinkedIn.
Well, 'cause I
LinkedIn,
figured
yeah.
I figured if I broke up with you first, that it wouldn't be as hard. Like I wouldn't be as
Oh
painful.
yeah, you gotta beat me to the
Control.
beat me to
Yeah, it's not you, Billy. It's not you. It's him.
It's not you, it's Ryan.
Oh man. But yeah, man. Well, it is a pleasure to be back with all you guys. It does feel kind of crazy that all of us are on this podcast at one time. Schedules have just been wild. Billy's been out. Obviously, I'll be on the road tomorrow, headed to Dallas, and I'll be in Dallas till Friday. AJ's been busy. He just got back from police week, so we've been, but we still been making Mondays. We still been making them happen.
That's right.
And so we appreciate all of you guys sticking around with us. Before we kind of, well, actually, I want to move into today's topic a little bit. I got one of the coolest emails the other day. Now, obviously, you guys know that me, AJ, and Billy do a lot of work. What you laughing at? I'm confused.
Billy had to pick his nose, so he just shut his camera off real quick.
Get a little bit in there.
Hey, it's a bad podcast, bro. Do your thing, bro. But anyways, we do a lot of work, on the road, speaking, talking to different people, students, you name it, cops. And it's very, very cool to actually get emails from people that actually listen to what you said, took it to heart. I've had so many times where, people, because people don't know us personally, a lot of times, well, I don't want to say a lot of times, but oftentimes, people will make these preconceived judgments on me or Billy or AJ. And because they see one post or, one thought that we said, they automatically assume that we're some type of way that was completely off base. And we actually might talk about that today because I actually talked to a partner of mine this other day, and it was a great conversation. I'm actually glad that he had enough respect to come to me and talk to me about it in person, about a way he was feeling about something. But a lot of times people don't really know us. They just go based off of what they see on social media and automatically start to formulate opinions about you. And so when you get emails sometimes and you get to see the aftermath of what the work that you're doing, what it produces, it is definitely reassuring. And so I actually titled the podcast episode today, "What Does It Take to Change?" And I want to really talk about this idea of humility. So let me read the email that I got, and then we'll talk about it. And I want to hear your guys' opinions, and I want to hear you guys also in the comment section, see what you guys think. But this is this was mine. This is a high school student. So keep in mind, this is a high school student, very, very articulate young lady, super smart. I remember specifically who she was when I went to her did my presentation. But it says, "Good afternoon, Mr. Tillman." She gives her name. She says, "We spoke briefly when you came to my school to speak on behalf of the outstanding organization that you currently run. To be frank, I was on the fence. I had so many opinions in regards to police officers and admittedly sided with the idea of defunding the police. It was actually my mother who opened me up and allowed me to see both perspectives. While being conflicted, your presentation at my high school allowed me to truly open up my mind and understand that not all police officers are bad. The news typically highlights the bad events, but it's truly rare to see an individual like yourself working to bridge the gap between police officers and society. I understand that you typically do not possess different internships roles throughout your organizations, but it would be an honor to work alongside, whether it is helping writing articles, help to ensure collaboration within different schools, organizations, essentially. I've been invited to attend the law intensive within Stanford University, but I've also made varsity POM. This internship, this internship would take top priority. It is an opportunity I would do anything for. I could also do this simultaneously and remotely. I've been saving money for college as my family is not really in the position to send me, but I'd be willing to quit my current job and intern on behalf of you and your organization. The program you run is something I truly believe in, allowing people of color to see police as helping hands, not the threats they are perceived as. Please allow me the opportunity to do so. Please get back to me at your convenience. Thank you for your time. I thought that was one of the coolest emails because this is a girl who was on the side of defunding the police, not liking police, feeling a certain type of way. And for her to be able to send me that message, not only was it cool, but it took a level of humility to do that. And it's crazy because this is a girl that's probably like 16, 17, 18 years old. And she possesses what a lot of adults don't possess right now, is that humility and wisdom in what she's doing. So I want to talk about today, what does it take to change a person's perception? Like, how do you get to that point to where you can legitimately say, you know what? Okay, I can see something from that perspective. What does it take? So I want to ask both of you guys that. I'll start with you, AJ, and then I'll get to you, Billy, and then we'll continue to have this discussion. And please, if you're watching this from wherever you're at, tell me in the comments box right now in the comment section, what do you think it takes to change perception? Go ahead, Billy, or go ahead, AJ.
Man, the first word that comes to mind is resilient. Like you have to be resilient, because I think every single one of us has like some sort of desire or drive to do something that's just very big, like to change something big. Maybe our dreams are huge, and whatever we want to accomplish is just like so big it's scary. And in order to do any of that, especially to implement change, like you have to be resilient, because you're going to face opposition. Like you're going to face people who don't believe in you. You're going to face people whose views don't align with yours, whether they're on the opposite end of the spectrum, or maybe they think you should be delivering it different. But no matter what, like you have to be resilient. And I think all three of us on this podcast are a true testament to that. Like we've all faced ups and downs in our lives, and whether it's like personal life or careers, but we stay resilient. And because we've been resilient, like now we are able to like enjoy the fruit from these trees. So for anyone out there listening that wants to be the change in law enforcement, or the change in your career, or the change in your family, your lineage, like whatever it is, like just know that it's an uphill battle. It's worth it, but you have to be resilient. Like you absolutely have to be resilient. Like I'm still going through storms, but I know I've tasted the fruit, right? Like I've gone, man, this is a great apple. I want another apple as good as this one. So now it's a little easier for me to face that opposition and those naysayers, because I know how good that fruit is. So that's what it is for me. Like that's the key for me, is like
That's
you
good.
have to be resilient.
That's good. What about you, Billy? What do you think? What does it take to change perception?
Just for me, I would say self-awareness, because I'm not a keynote speaker. I'm not the type who would join law enforcement as an officer. But I know like my abilities can be media related things, and I can help, project your voice and project BBU and AJ. So self-awareness of what you're good at and how you can apply that to whatever you're trying to change.
Yeah, no, I think that's really, really good too. I think self-awareness coupled with the resiliency are two great aspects that you need to have. And then Angie said open-minded. I think you definitely need to be open-minded in order to do that. I think for me, like I said before when I first mentioned this, I think it takes humility, because sometimes as human beings we just have that desire to always be right. You know what I mean? And we'll die on a hill. Even if we know we're wrong, you still want to find something in your argument that was correct.
Thing. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's that pride. It's like, you ever been in an argument where you're wrong, but you still try to find something in the argument that you're right. Well, I still did that. I mean, I still got that.
Every
It's just
married man has been in that situation.
Exactly. And so, that's just that humanistic thing that we always want to do. And we see a lot of that when we're talking about law enforcement. Is you can show people like, well, this and that, all this other stuff, this is why law enforcement was in the right. Well, he still did it. I'll give you a prime example of this. I showed a video, I think it was last week, where what video was it? It was the officers did something, and
Got
what
slapped
video?
by a United worker.
Oh no, I put that one out
crazy,
today.
Yeah, that's a crazy video.
I put that one out today. But anyways, I was showing a video of something, and long story short, I gave all the facts about it, described how law enforcement did what they did, and they were still like, well, and people were in my comment section were like, oh, well, he's still, dang, you know what? Oh, I gotta find this, bro, because I don't want to butcher this example, but it was the stupidest thing ever. And I was like, man, some people you just can't win at all with. What is going on? Of course, everything my Instagram want to mess up. Okay, here we go. It was.
Well, I mean, some people just aren't actually looking for answers or facts.
Okay, this is what it was. So it was when the Buffalo shooting happened. It was when the Buffalo shooting happened, in the complete racist thing or whatever, where he killed, I think it was 13 people, right? So I had made the comparison about how, because they were like, oh, well, only anytime a white suspect is taken into custody, he's not shot and killed by police. And then I said, well, I gave examples, and then I said, but the black guy in New York, when he shot the people on the subway, he killed multiple people and stuff like that. And then somebody was like, well, he didn't even kill nobody. He shot at him, but nobody died. And I'm like, bruh,
like the officers was checking on scene, like, is he dead? No, okay,
yeah, exactly. Like, oh yeah, like I'm just intentionally like shooting these people in the leg so that way they don't die, but I'm still gonna shoot some folks. Like, but that was my point. Is like, you missed the whole point. You missed the whole point of everything I said. This guy still went out there with the intent to kill people, and all you got from this video that I put out was the fact that, oh, well, nobody actually died in this one, but this guy actually killed 13 people. Like, but that's my point. And so I think it takes the humility to just admit, like, you know what, I was wrong. Like,
yeah,
I was wrong. It's not what I thought it was. And if you and I didn't have that ability to do that, then we would have never became police officers, because we would still be, thinking the same way that we used to think, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, you have to be consistent too, though. Like as the person trying to implement change, like you can't expect your one good deed or like your one conversation to be that light switch. Sometimes it might be like, sometimes you might have a conversation, that person might walk away, and their whole life is just wrecked because you said exactly what they needed to hear at the time. But more times than not, it's going to take that like consistency of showing and telling and proving and like having someone that they could go back to and bounce these ideas off of, at least to create like that sustainable change, like the change where if Ryan changes someone, that person can then have a conversation with somebody else backing what Ryan was originally saying. Like, in order to create that, like, you have to be consistent as well. And I think that's where, you know, we'll dive deep into this. I think that's where we as a profession sometimes fail, is the consistency. I think we get wrapped up so much so in, you know, police officers do phenomenal jobs, right? But I'm talking about like taking that extra step and like getting to know the community, or you know, talking to the person who's holding the sign that stands against everything that you represent and everything that you are and everything that you believe. You might have that conversation with that person once, but if it goes sideways, then we automatically revert back to, well, I knew it. I tried to have that conversation with that person. He didn't want to hear it. He just wants to defund me. He hates me because of what I represent, the badge. And it's like, you got to realize, like, whatever it is that is making that person feel the way that they're feeling is going to take chipping away. And it might get tiring, but if you're truly passionate about being that change and like creating that change for the next generation that comes after you, you have to realize, like, this is going to take a while. I'm gonna have to keep chipping away at it. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying that you have to do that. All I'm saying is that if you truly want to make that change, and we'll keep it law enforcement specific, is you're going to have to be consistent. You're going to, like, you can't show up one time and play basketball with a group of kids and then expect those kids to just love you forever. Like, man, I was shooting hoops with these kids last week. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
That's not how
They
it
don't
works.
like me yet. They don't like me
Yeah,
yet.
right. Remember I shot and I missed it. Y'all make Michael Jordan, right? Like, nah, that ain't how it is. You have to be consistent, and that's across the board.
And I think that's kind of what goes to our credibility, at least for the three of us, is that we've been consistent for Lord knows how long, and doing this work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before we actually even start publicizing it, we
Yeah.
were out there doing the work. And so that kind of goes into the conversation I had this week with a partner of mine. And he's a really, really good friend. I like him a lot. We've been friends for a long, long time. But he approached me about, you know, he was feeling some type of way, which I know if he's feeling this type of way, I know others are feeling this type of way. I'm going to tell you guys exactly what he was getting at. So obviously they released that documentary about on me a few weeks ago. And what he was feeling some type of way was, in the documentary, I said, you know, I said something to the effect of, I can see why there's a real fear that the Black community has with law enforcement. And I was like, or I said legit fear that the Black community has with law enforcement. And so he sees that, or he hears that, and he's like, what does he mean? And then partly he starts to think like, well, is he on this social activist movement? Is he kind of drinking the Kool-Aid and,
Right.
you know, automatically saying there's all this racism and things like that really doesn't exist, you know? And so he was bothered by it. And so why I respect him so much is because he came and talked to me and said, hey, look, I'm feeling kind of bothered by this statement that you said. And so, as opposed to being bothered by it, and as opposed to talking trash or going behind your back and doing, I just want to talk to you, you know, and ask you, which I was like, man, I can tell you how much I appreciate. And so I was like, well, first and foremost, and he was like, you know, and this is a white officer. And I say that because it does bring context. It's like, I've never in my, you know, 10 plus years of policing ever experienced racism. I have grown up in a very diverse neighborhood where I have a lot of friends that are different colors, and I've never seen an officer do any type of racial things, at least around me. And so I was like, okay, I completely understand it. And I was like, but just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I've experienced some stuff, and I actually gave him examples that I've gone through personally as well as indirectly. And he was like, oh, wow, I never knew that occurred. So I was like, so that kind of opened his eyes too. But then I was like, you know, but the other part too is like, when I say something like, you know, Black people have a legitimate fear of police, people will see that statement and they automatically say, oh man, he's drinking a Kool-Aid. He's just saying stuff to make people feel good, without understanding the whole entire what I'm saying behind it. And I was like, when I broke it down to him like this, I said, you got to realize imagine you grow up in an inner city neighborhood, and AJ, you work in a lot of inner cities.
Yeah.
And if all you knew about police was either your interaction with them on a one-on-one basis or
Mhm.
what you see on Instagram or social media in the news, you would automatically start to feel a level of fear, because that's what the media does. It makes you fear the police, the way they write articles, the way they put stuff out. Unarmed black man shot by police. Police target black male again. Like if that's all you watch day in, day out, do you see how that can instill a legitimate fear in somebody? Even though
Mhm.
we as police officers know it's not necessarily legitimate fear, because we all know, like I know, if you do what you're supposed to do when the police tell you to do thing, the odds of you actually getting killed or getting hurt are very slim to none, because you're cooperating, you're listening to what they're telling you to do, you're following their instructions. But when pop culture, when friends, when your family, when all they do is instill this, the police are the enemy, the police are out to hurt you, you're a black man, that means you're going to get killed, that's a legitimate fear. Now, even though I know as a police officer that it may be illegitimate in the way and the reasons why they believe that, it's still to them legitimate, up to me, A, and Billy, to go out there and make it illegitimate by educating them. So
Yeah.
you can't just take a statement that I make from a documentary and separate it and say, oh, you must be drinking this Kool-Aid all of a sudden, and that now say you're the social warrior, social justice activist, when you really hear the context of it, you understand what I'm getting at. The other part of that too is like, a lot of people think that we're so far removed from the civil rights movement. Like, we're not that far removed from the civil rights movement. There are still some
Yeah.
racial antics that go on. I mean, the Buffalo shooter is a prime example. And I was
Mhm.
saying, racism can happen both ways. It can happen. I mean, the prime example was the Christmas Day parade, the guy that went and killed all those people on the subway. So don't get me wrong on that one. Racism happens two ways. A lot of times people think that black people can't be racist. You're absolutely wrong if
Yeah.
you say that, because like, how is it possible for one race and is impossible for the other? So
Yeah.
that's a story for a different day. But anyways, by saying that racism is still alive, that really, we have to recognize that we're not that far removed from the civil rights movement. And so when you have, it's like some of my parents, my mom and dad, they weren't that far removed from their parents telling them to stay off the other side of the railroad tracks, because if you go on the other side of the railroad tracks, you may be targeted.
Yeah.
And because you grow up with that mentality of your parents, that then gets passed on to your kids, which are
Mhm.
like, hey, be careful with this and that. And so even though we've made tremendous strides in law enforcement, even though I don't believe that there's systematic racism that exists in law enforcement, even though I know these things to be true because I've worked in law enforcement for many years, we still have a lot of building through education to do, because there are a lot of people that grow up in these inner city communities that don't see what we see. They don't understand what we understand, and they don't understand, the work that needs to be done in law enforcement, or the real work that needs to be done in law enforcement. So does that make
Yeah.
sense? And I don't know how I got on that tangent, but I wanted to
No,
talk about it.
it absolutely does. And the beautiful thing is, when I was in DC, man, and this is like one of the many reasons why I like going to DC for Police Week, is you just meet officers from all over. Like, it's not just United States. I'm talking all over the world. And we'll stick here to the US for now, but there are so many dope officers, like, just doing amazing things in their community, and you really don't hear about it. And like that alone, like you should ask yourself, like, why don't I hear about that? Like, why isn't that all over my news feed? And if you dig deep enough, like you'll get the answer, right? It's because that's not what a majority of people want to see. Like, a majority of people want to see negativity. I don't even want to say they want to see negativity, but it fuels people. Like, it makes them angry, and then they have to dive deeper into the story, and they search more, and they click on your page, and, oh, what led to this? Like, how many other officers were like this? And you just go down this rabbit hole, and before you know it, like, you're controlled by like these emotions that really aren't true. But to go back to your point, there absolutely are people in the United States who have a legitimate reason to fear the police. 100%, man. And I talked about it before, right? My grandmother has experienced true racism, 1000% true racism. There's no denying it. I'm talking drink from the other water fountain type of racism, right? So when my grandmother has a child, right? Say it's my father. Say my grandmother has a son. She's going to teach her son everything that she can to make sure that he has a successful life. Hey, this is what you need to eat. This is what you need to do. This is what you don't need to do. This is what you're not supposed to do. This is who you're supposed to hang around with. And part of that may, and more than likely will be, hey, you really can't trust the police because these are my experiences. This is what I've seen. This is what I've experienced firsthand from law enforcement. You can't trust them. You can't blame her for that, right? Like we've already established, my grandmother has a legitimate reason to not like and trust the police, right? So when she has a son, she's going to pat, just like Billy with your children, just like Ryan with your children, just like me with my son. We're going to pass down everything that we know to make sure that they have a successful life. So when she does that, okay, now my father has this preconceived notion of law enforcement, whether or not it's true for his generation. He has it up here from one of the individuals on this earth that he trusts the most. So he goes about life. He doesn't really have positive interactions with law enforcement. He turns on the radio. He hears F the police. The police did this. He turns on the news. He's seeing all this stuff. He hops on social media. If social media was around then, and it's solidifying what his mother told him. So then he has a son, and that's me. We're not that far removed from it. So, and when he passes that information down for me, then I'm going to have that preconceived notion as well. So then we have to ask ourselves, if that's the reality of the world that we live in, which it is, I'm telling you 100%, that is the reality of the world that we live in, then whose job is it to break that cycle? And I believe that it's the police's job. Because if I'm scared of pit bulls, guess what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to go near pit bulls. But if a pit bull comes up to me and starts licking me, then I'm going to go, this pit bull is a little different. And then if another pit bull comes up and starts licking me, I'm going to go, oh, maybe there's more nice pit bulls than I thought there were. But it's up to the pit bulls to initiate that because my fear is legitimate. So if there are people who fear the police and are angry with the police, like I believe that it's our job to do it. I truly do. And if you don't want to go out and you don't want to do that, great. But what you don't have a right to do is to complain about the situation that we're in.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of passing down, I'm sure Billy's going to be passing down his Crocs, to the next generation, huh?
They already got some.
I got to be honest. My son got a pair of Crocs. And I love them for him because I just throw them on real quick. Boom.
Some shoes are impossible to get on, and it's just you don't even want to deal with this. You just need something that slips right on,
I got to be honest. Yeah. So I was at my son's baseball practice a couple weeks ago, and I had some Jordans on, and I was not, and I'm a coach. I'm not wearing my Jordans on this baseball field, so I'm gonna watch from the side. That's the type of cat I am. I was watching from the other side of the fence, and the other coach was like, "Hey, I got some Crocs if you want to throw them on." So I threw them bad boys on. I was like, "Oh, these things are kind of comfortable." So
I think they're coming back. I don't know if I already said that in the podcast.
Did they leave? Did they go out of style?
As far as not hated on so much, I think
Billy's advocating.
Yeezy comes out with some Crocs, and everybody likes Crocs now.
Billy's out there protesting, that they went away.
That's funny.
Hey, so I got a question for you, Billy. So obviously we've talked many times before about, how we were raised, and especially, obviously racism was a topic of conversation in my household just because I'm Black, you know what I mean? So, did you ever have any conversations like that with your parents growing up about racism or anything like that? Or was it like ever a thing?
Good question.
To be honest, no. I think because I grew up in like a small retirement town, and I would say it was like mostly white. So like the kind of like high school, like there's 2,500, 3,000 kids. I think we had like 2 Black kids, that kind of thing. It just never came up.
So yeah. So I asked that question because if a Black person is listening to this, I want you guys to listen to this point that I'm about to make. Billy grew up in a town where racism wasn't a thing, but let's say AJ or me grew up in the hood and I don't know Billy. The expectation these days is like, no, you need to know what racism is. You need to know how you guys are racist towards me and disrespectful. But if you don't know anybody, if you don't know anything, then we can't expect you to go out of your way and bend over backwards for people that, feel like you're being racist if you don't know what racism truly is. And so my point is I feel bad a lot of times for white people because I'm like, well, some people legitimately don't even know what racism is, but yet we are forcing them to almost be guilty in a way because of your white
apologize,
white privilege or apologize or that, apologetic. And it's like, well, Billy didn't do anything to me.
Yeah.
Maybe his ancestors, and that's the thing. So we start talking about generational stuff now, right? Like, I don't even know if I would want a white person to apologize to me for the sins of your ancestors, because that had nothing like that didn't affect me
What got to
personally.
do with me?
Yeah, like that may have affected my grandfather.
Yeah.
And you know, but so why should you have to apologize on behalf of, you know, something that your ancestors did and vice versa? And so, you know, I don't like this place where we're going and where we're making people feel sorry for white. I hate that. That is my core. I am very proud to be a black man, like very, very proud. I wouldn't want to be born any different skin.
Yeah.
But it's a shame when, you know, I can sit here and say black power, and in the moment somebody else says white power, it's all of a sudden like, oh shoot, you can't say that. You know what I mean? Don't say that. Now you're racist. And so we've gotten to a place in society where we're making people feel sorry, and it's actually, I think, making us go backwards as opposed to move forward.
Yeah.
Do you guys agree with me on that, or you guys disagree?
Billy?
No, I don't disagree. And I mean, I knew, like, we had history class. I knew what racism was. I just never saw it. Kind of what I meant. Like, I wasn't like a total ignorant, you know. Like,
What's racism?
yeah, no, what's a black person? No, but I agree with you. I mean,
Have you ever felt that way though? Like, does it make you upset sometimes when people try to make you feel sorry for being white?
I mean, yeah, you see that everywhere now. So I mean,
But
I
how does it make you feel though?
Well, I haven't had it done to me personally, but I think the whole thing is ridiculous. When, like, I think even during the George Floyd things, like, they had like videos of like white people like getting down and on their knees and like apologizing to black people. I was like, this is some religious weird like stuff, you know, like really weird. Not that all religion is weird. I'm just saying, like, it was like like pagan worship. It was weird, you know. So the whole thing is ridiculous.
Yeah. And it's funny because we never include. I just thought of it, like, we never ask for the white person's opinion. We give our opinion. We give our opinion, but we don't want to hear your opinion. But I want to know, like, how does it make you feel? Because it's like your voice is being suppressed because our needs are higher, or at least that's what we're like. Our needs are higher, which to me, the big fight for me is just equality. Like, I don't need to be above you. I don't need to be above a white person. I really don't. Like, I just want us to be equal. Just give me a fair shot. And I understand, like, sometimes the fight is because people feel like they haven't been given a fair shot for all these years. So I understand that side of the coin. But when we do get a fair shot, is the argument over? Can we stop fighting now? Can we move forward? Or are we just going to continue to perpetuate this because this has now become a thing?
So let me give you a scenario. All right. So same situation as before, right? Like, grandmother had son had, we'll say Ryan, right? That son had Ryan, taught him everything that he knew, which was police officers are racist, you can't trust them. And then Ryan had some things that kind of solidified it for him, right? So that's Ryan's reality, is that police officers are racist, you can't trust them. So then you have Billy, who grew up in a small town, doesn't have a racist bone in his body, hasn't ever really experienced racism, at least that he knows of. He joins law enforcement because he wants to do right, or, you know, he joined for whatever reason, right? His dad might have been a police officer. You two collide, all right, and not physically, but you two have some sort of collision where you're just disagreeing with each other. I can't trust you because you're racist. I'm not really racist, so I'm not gonna have to prove myself wrong. Like, who does what in that situation to make it right? Because I feel, and let me ask you why I'm asking that. Because I feel like that is more. That's what we're running into more times than not. Is we're running into, and maybe I shouldn't say that, because I feel like a lot of people out there are so fueled by other things, but I have seen this happen, and it's frustrating for me because I'm just like, wait, hold on, everybody listen, but
I
who
think
should do what in that situation?
I think it's incumbent upon me to explain to Billy why I feel the way I do, because how is Billy supposed to know how to fix, like, if he doesn't even know there's a problem that even exists in the first place? But in doing so, I have to remove my emotions out of it and, like, legitimately, like, lay down to him, like, this is why I feel, and this is why I feel that way.
Yeah.
So that way Billy could either, you know, legitimize my claims, or say or delegitimize my claims and say, well, bro, that's not true. This is what the reality is. Or you can say, okay, I understand that. But how would Billy be able to approach me if he doesn't even know what the problem is? I give you an example. Like, there's sometimes being married, and obviously if you've been married for a while, you get in arguments with your spouse, and you know,
Preach, brother.
AJ's like, woo, amen. I ain't even said a statement, like, amen. But how many times have you gotten in an argument and like you legitimately as a guy did not even know like what was the issue? Like, you know, they're like they may be acting a certain type of way towards you, like mad or whatever it is, and you're like, what the heck did I do? And so it goes on like for, you know, a while. You're just like, you're just trying nothing. I'm fine. I'm good. And then finally you find out.
I hate that treatment.
Yeah. And
You
then
didn't take the trash
I
out
always
5
freak
months
out.
ago.
I know you're upset. I'm gonna stop asking until you're ready to tell me.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Hey, that's I'm like this.
yeah,
I'm like,
exactly.
all right.
Yeah. Right. So then finally, let's say you find out finally, and it's like, well, shoot, I never even knew I did that, or I didn't even know that was an issue. If you would have just told me, I could have tried to solve the problem. And so we kind of act like that in society where we go along like, well, you should know why I'm mad. You should know exactly what the issue is. It's like, well, I don't.
Yeah.
Like I don't. So why don't you tell me? And then if they tell me something that is legit, then I can't still walk away being mad. Like, well, I'm still gonna be mad anyway. Like you, that's what. So when we talk about changing a person's, like, how do you change? I think that's why we have to go back to that humility. Is like the ability to, I'm wrong. Okay, like you got a good point. Only if a person can make a legitimate claim to why you're wrong. Billy?
Oh, I got nothing to add to that. I agree with you. I mean, that analogy makes sense to me.
So in that situation, you would say
did I get
that
the question right or wrong, AJ? Because I know you said,
you know, the more that I sit here and I think about it, I'm trying to put myself in both shoes, right? So like I've been in law enforcement for over 10 years, and like, you know, you clearly know what my stance is on that. Like I truly believe in putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations to at least spark the conversation in hopes to create change. But then as we're sitting here talking, I put myself in the opposite shoes, you know, being a biracial man that grew up in the inner city. And even when I'm outside of uniform, like I still take it upon myself to have those conversations when I'm faced with these situations. So I guess the answer is like we all have a part to do, and we have to put like our pride aside. Like I get that you might have a legitimate reason to be upset with me, but like you have never had a conversation with me. So let's start there. And at the same time, like I have to understand that you may feel some type of way and it may be legitimate. So let me do my part in making you comfortable in order for you to tell me why you feel the way that you feel.
yes.
So
you're spot on.
So it's a two-way street, and I feel like we've gotten so far away from that we just kind of, you know, you have, and I'll just speak in general here, like you have police officers who are like, I'm not racist. I haven't done anything racist in my life. You need to listen to me. I'm not your enemy. And then you have other people who are like, you're a racist. Admit you're racist. Apologize to me. Everything that you've done is just like this constant like battle where like no one wants to listen, to where like if we take a break and we take a second and go, hey, why don't you relax? You need to chill out, listen to each other. And that's exactly it. You put the comment right up on the screen. Like communication is key to this.
Because it's all smoke and mirrors. It's like literally everybody's being distracted. I was telling somebody the other day that what's interesting is like everybody argues that law enforcement is this racial systematic system that is just completely bunk. Like that's what the whole claim about police. And in my mind, I'm thinking like you're actually extremely so far off, because the system in and of itself is not racist.
Yeah.
The issue, I was like, don't give me, and the crazy thing is like law enforcement definitely has its issues, but the issues aren't what you think they are. Like the issues are stuff internally that nobody knows about. The issues are bureaucracy.
Command staff.
Yeah, seriously, bureaucracies that nobody wants to talk about. The issues are police covering up stuff like unethical and immoral stuff that has nothing to do with racism, but it's happening. And I know that, and I know that personally, because there's some stuff that we talked about recently on our podcast where you have police chiefs and things doing stuff like that. So those are real serious issues that exist that nobody's talking about because it doesn't have color to do with it. There's nothing to do with color. It has everything to do with unethical and immorality.
Yeah.
But you attach color to it. Now all of a sudden it takes on a different light. And now we start to argue or continue to argue about the whole thing in and of itself. As I told you, the system was racist. Like, no, like, trust me, usually when an officer kills somebody in the line of duty, when it's controversial, it's really not related to race. It has mostly to do with the training and tactics of how they handled the situation that are going to make it right, wrong, or indifferent. But we're arguing, we're being distracted about this color thing because that's what pop culture and everything else is telling us to be focused on, which I'm telling you because I've gone into the system, the so-called system that is so racist. I've gone into the system and been able to see, I'm still waiting. Now, don't get me wrong. There has been some racial stuff that I'm like, okay, that right there was definitely kind of racist. But it doesn't exist like everybody believes it exists, or to the extent that people believe it does. So I think, AJ, you're spot on when you say everybody has a part to play. It goes back to that conversation what I had with my buddy. Like, we both met in the middle. I didn't know anything was wrong. I honestly didn't know anything was wrong. He approached me. He told me his issue. I explained my side. We met in the middle and walked away with it feeling way better about it. Like, he got clarity from my side. I got clarity from where he was where he was at. I was able to explain context to it, and we went about our ways. But if we don't have that communication, then what happens is he walks away, bad mouthing me, talking trash, saying all this other stuff. I walk away like, man, why is he acting like that? Man, he acting. See, he must be acting like everybody else, hating on me just because I'm doing what I'm doing. And now, because of all this big old mixed communication, we never were able to move forward as better friends. But yet we got stampered because of our ignorance of trying to, understand where we're coming from. So go ahead, AJ.
Yeah. I mean, you have to ask you. Yeah.
When you're done.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you in your day to day, and it might be hard for you to answer because the community knows you so well.
Yeah.
But do you run into people who actually are like, man, all of you are terrible? Like,
oh, absolutely.
You're an officer and all the rest of you are awful. Or is that more of like just pop culture is pushing that? Or do you see people in your community like on a daily kind of feeling that way?
No, I mean, I've definitely run across my fair share of people who want absolutely nothing to do with me. But that goes back to, what we were just talking about. Like, those are the people I want to be around.
Right.
Those are the people I'm like, I'll just give you a scenario. If I show up to a rec center, and this has happened, this has happened more than once. If I show up to a rec center and I'm interacting with the kids there, or I'm there to help set up, or I'm playing like racquetball, or, whatever it is, I'm there for a legitimate reason, to do good. And there's an employee there who's just kind of like give me the side eye, like, shh. Like, I'll make it a point to go over and talk to them. And if they don't want to talk to me, I'm gonna be back tomorrow. I'm gonna be back the day after that. And eventually you're gonna see, like, I'm not doing this for show. I'm not doing this just so I feel good because I feel like this is my good deed. Like, eventually you're gonna see like man, AJ cool. Like, I'm gonna rock with AJ. And it's because I put forth that effort. And then what they're gonna see is, man, that dude Jones that's always working with AJ, man, he cool too. And then what that person is gonna see, man, that guy Hale that sometimes works with AJ, man, he's cool too. And both Hale and Jones are white. And then eventually you're gonna have 5, 10 officers that you could say are cool. So that's why I preach sometimes, or maybe that's why I preach sometimes. It's up to us to do it. And I know that's somewhat contradictory to what I said before. I said that we all have something to do. But it's up to you, like, as a law enforcement officer, like that applies to you as well. Like, you can't count on that the person at the rec center, the employee, the person who doesn't want anything to do with you to take that first step. Like, sometimes we have to take that first step. And then sometimes we have to take the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth before they take one. So to answer your question, I absolutely do. Like, I run into it. And I've run into people who I can't change their mind. But at the same time, like, I've been, and not to keep going with this, we did a Stop the Violence basketball league last summer, and it was 100% organic externally. Like this guy called me because somebody else in the community gave him my number. And I'm like, hello. He's like, hey, this is Tony. I go by Tone. I love what you're doing in the community. We need to do something because the homicide rate's too high. I'm like, let's link. We start talking. I'm like, what's your idea? He's like, I'm thinking a basketball league. We do it under the lights, old school. We keep it outside. That way, like the community can show up. And I'm like, bet. And I'm like, he's like, well, what can you bring to the table? I'm like, I could bring law enforcement. Like I could make sure the chief stops by. I'll bring a whole team of CPD to play basketball. We're gonna have community
Definitely
members.
not his skills.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the coach because I don't want to embarrass myself out here like Ryan did when he said he was an athlete, shot the air ball. But during the third game, like it was a huge success. The community members came out like crazy. There was law enforcement officers on duty, off duty there, and it was just a dope event. During the third game, this guy walks up to me. And he's like, hey, I just want to shake your hand, man. And he's an older black guy. And I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, I appreciate you, man. And he's like, I got to be honest. He goes, I thought you was full of crap until I seen you here. And he was like, man, the way you interact. He's like, I've been watching you for the past 2 games. This is game 3. So he came to game 1 and game 2. Never walked up to me. He was watching from afar. He saw me interacting with people, hugging people. People were coming up to me like, oh, thank you so much for, watching over my kids or picking my kid up from school and dropping him off at home when I couldn't. And then on day 3, he approached me. He's like, man, you're a real deal. He said, can I take a picture with you? And I want to put it on my Instagram to let everybody know that you're the real deal. And I was like, absolutely, you can. And that's clearly something that has stuck with me this entire time, right? Like that still puts a smile on my face when I think about it. And the reason is because I've worked hard for that. Like I've continued to take step after step after step after step after step. And now I'm reaping the benefits from that. So like Billy, you even said it, like, I know you might not get this often because you're so ingrained in the community and known in your community, but like, even if it wasn't for social media, even if I never had a social media following, well, before I had a social media following, like the community I served still knew me. Like I was still Officer AJ in that community. And that's why I say it's important for us to take those steps, because then you could be officer such and such in your community and you could have those conversations like I did at that third game of the basketball.
Yeah,
that's good. So I want to address this comment because this is good. And honey, I'm glad you put this comment in here, but I'm not calling you
name is honey. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I'm not. If my wife is listening to this, I'm not calling her honey. That's her name, Honey Williams. But I want to talk about it, and I want to ask Billy, like, how do you feel about this? And I'm going to tell you how I feel. I'm putting Billy on the spot today. He's been gone 3 weeks. I'm going to make sure I keep putting him on the spot. But if you're listening to this in your car, the comment says this: racism, white supremacy is not just about individual interactions, microaggressions, or slurs. Racism, white supremacy is a global system of advantage based on race, which privileges white people and disadvantages everybody else. Racial prejudice plus the structural power to oppress equals racial or racism, white supremacy. How do you feel about that, Billy? And honestly,
sounds like it's right out of a CNN article. But so for me, what global system of advantage? Because global is huge. I mean, there's racism in all countries against all different types of nationalities.
Yeah.
And then also
he's blowing it. I can see his neck twitching now. He's got him hyped
Put it
up.
out there, Billy.
And what privileges? Like, I missed out on those privileges. I mean, unless you want to say it's kind of like unseen white privilege that you don't know you have. Well, so how do I argue against that? If I can't see it and I don't know I have it, how am I supposed to argue with you? So, and to me, it feels like anything that I've worked for or gotten, well, you're white, so of course. Well, that undermines everything I've ever worked for.
Exactly. This is good. I'm glad we talked about it. I got really fired up right now. Love it. Love it. Big shot. So I think it's good too, because I agree with Billy. Like, my thing is, like, if I've known Billy for a while. I've seen Billy go through his struggles. I've seen him get to where he's at. And it wasn't because somebody, said, oh, you're white, we're about to give this to you. So here you go. You got it now because you're white. I'm not going to give it to Ryan because he's black. I'm going to give it to Billy because he's white. I've been around Billy for a long time. And so that's the global structure that you're referring to would mean that everybody that is white benefits from it. But if everybody white doesn't benefit from it, can we say that it is legitimately a systematic racial white supremacy structure that exists? Which you can't say that, because not everybody benefits. And on the other hand, as a black man, I'm telling you now that I have gotten a lot of opportunities that white people haven't gotten to do. Like
Okay.
I've gotten some crazy opportunities that white people haven't been afforded to do. And a lot of it is because of my hard work. So I'm not sitting here saying that, there isn't prejudice that exists. Like I know it exists because I've heard some ignorant folks. It exists both ways. But to sit here and say, and kind of going back to what AJ's point was, is like, I like to say that I've gotten a lot from what I've had just because I've legitimately like went out there and worked hard from it. And again, this is coming, and I see you're coming from England, so I appreciate that, honey. It might be different in England. I can't speak to England. Only thing I can speak to is the United States. And at least in the United States, I have been afforded the equal opportunity that every other person has gotten.
Mhm.
Have I gotten denied sometimes? Yes. But could I say it was because of my black skin? No, I can't necessarily say that. There have been times, no doubt about it, that I know I've been discriminated on because of my skin color. And the person that I was dealing with told me verbally, like, this is what it is. But did I allow that to stop me? No. And so I have a lot of friends that are black. My cousin being one of them. My cousin, he brought in $8 million last year because he's the CEO of a publicly traded company. So how do I sit here and say that, Billy has, like, if your definition is correct, that would mean that Billy should be running a Fortune 500 company just because of the color of his skin, and my cousin shouldn't be where he's at. So I just don't know if that is the right way to define what racial and white supremacy
saying
is.
it's global system of structure, like, there's within the Hispanic culture, like Mexicans might look at Argentinians differently, and they might, or vice versa. Like my wife, their whole family's Guatemalan, so there's like, it's not just white people taking over the world. I mean, I bet Chinese look at North Koreans differently than, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then so redlining what she's referring to, that is a good example. But again, how long ago was that example? So are we still, there are still some consequences to that whole redlining thing that occurred years ago that unfortunately some minorities pay the price for. But the whole system now, like redlining, doesn't exist anymore. You can't do it anymore. These things that you're referring to, and then the last thing you said is like, she's going on now. Hard work will not stop you from being treated like George Floyd. Again, I bring the George Floyd up one because this is a good one. George Floyd, I keep saying this. How can we prove that Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd because he was black? We can prove that he killed him because he was an ignorant cop. We can prove that he killed him because he was a trash, he was a trash cop and all this other stuff. But how can you go out there and prove that the system of racial white supremacy is what killed George Floyd? You can't. Like, you would need to know everything about Derek Chauvin in order to be able to prove that. And on top of that, did you know that a black officer killed a white man the same exact way as Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd, and nobody ever heard about it? So how do you explain that when you have a black officer legitimate, and he was on this person's neck for a lot longer than Derek Chauvin was, but the world never heard about it. So how do you refute that argument when it's like, just because you don't hear about it, does it exist, or does it not exist? Go ahead, AJ.
I'm gonna just address a few of these. So for those of you who are listening and not watching, the comments are kind of coming in now. There's a little bit of back and forth. So
this is good, actually. Thanks, honey.
It is good. It's really good.
You honey because you're honey. I'm calling you honey because
yeah. The name is Honey Williams that are making these comments. That's why we're saying honey. So I have faced racism, 100%, without a doubt. I have faced racism. I had a white friend who kicked me out the house, wouldn't even let me drink water from the hose, called me every racial slur in the book. I faced what I believe to be racism, doing what I do in law enforcement, both internally and externally. I didn't let that stop me. I didn't let it deter me, because I know that experience is a small minority of the large majority of people, businesses, organizations, and representatives across the board. So when I experienced racism internally from the field of law enforcement, I didn't go, there it is. That's the racism I was looking for. Every single law enforcement representative is racist, and this one person proved it. That's hypocrisy. The same way that me as a black man doesn't want a white person to have a bad interaction with a black man and think, there it is. I knew that every single black person, that's hypocrisy. Like that's the same exact thing that we all stand against. We just can't see it when it's on the other spectrum of things. So you go on to say that, and I appreciate this dialogue. I don't want you to think I'm coming at you by any means, but if we're going to have a dialogue, we're going to have a real raw conversation. You go on to say that anyone of any race can struggle. Privilege is not about money, it's about access. Let me tell you a little bit about that statement. I have a good friend of mine who is Jewish, and he was born into millions, understatement, hundreds of millions of dollars. He has more access than I could ever imagine. I don't hate him because I don't have that access. I understand that his family worked hard for that, and I understand that his family, if they want to give his son their uncle or whoever the access to their fortune or their connections that they've built over time, I understand that is their right. Now, do I wish that I had that access? Absolutely, because I would probably be further in life, but that I can't even guarantee, and we could talk about that later. Let me tell you something else to address that is the precinct where I worked when I first got on the department was a it was split actually. So there was the main street. If you went east of that street, it was a majority of minorities, Hispanics and blacks. If you went west of that street, it was a majority of whites. The entire precinct, very inner city, low income. I can promise you that if you went west of that street to these low income white communities in the inner city, they don't have that quote unquote access that you talk about. So I think what we're getting here is you've experienced something, you know about redlining, you know about these things that have happened. But the reason you know about these things is because they're news. And the reason that they're news is because it stands out. Look at this corporation doing this. This is crazy. This is not the norm. I want you to know about this, right? I could put myself on TV breathing oxygen all day long. And you know what? No one will care because we all breathe oxygen. AJ's breathing oxygen. It's not news. You know why? Because Billy breathes oxygen or Ryan breathes oxygen. And AJ's been breathing oxygen this whole time. But if I stopped breathing oxygen and I stayed alive for 5 days, it would be breaking news. So these things have happened, and these things have stopped and hurt a lot of people. But when you make these comments that the system is set up for me to fail and for Billy to win, you're setting yourself up for failure is what you're doing. And that is the reality. I hate to say that, but that's the reality. Like, I have found myself in situations where I've had to work twice as hard to get half the recognition, but I continue to fight because I know when I get it, it's going to be worth it. And I know that the opposition that I'm facing because of my race, because of my background, because of classism, because of whatever it is that I'm experiencing is not the majority. It's not the majority of people. It's not the majority of organizations. It's not the majority of representatives. So I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep fighting because you know what? Because I want to supply my lineage with exactly what you're talking about, which is access.
And I wanted to address this last comment, then we'll wrap it up because we've gone long today, but it's good. It's been good. She said that, Eileen, white privilege is not about money. Don't confuse classism and racism. But here's kind of where you kind of contradict yourself, because when we talk about access, you're not talking about access to broke folks. You're talking about access to wealthy people. Because when you're talking about access, what are you referring to? When you say access, you're referring to some type of a person in some type of financial place that gives them the ability to do a whole bunch of other stuff. So so classism and racism kind of go hand in hand if you're talking about access, because and talking about access, if we're talking about this structural thing that existed where it doesn't allow me certain access, you're wrong in that. I literally 2 months ago, I was in a building in Texas, and I was probably surrounded by probably about 60% of the net worth of Texas all in one room in one night. And I'm a black man from Rialto, California, and my parents did not have that type of wealth. I am there with the most wealthiest people in the whole state of Texas in one room, and they didn't say, "Oh, you're black, you can't come in here." You know why I got access to that? I got access because I was bringing something to the table that the world needs. I was
Mhm.
able to bring solutions to the table that other people need. It wasn't because they said, oh, you know what, you're with this white guy, so we're going to bring you in. No, I went out there and earned the access for myself. And so if we want to talk about what systematic racism is, I think what systematic racism is where we keep crippling minorities to think that they can't go out and do something
Mm,
because of the color of their skin. What
mm,
we need to do is we need to empower minorities to go out there and be what they can be. We need to empower minorities to go out there and say, you know what, I can create solutions. Because when
mhm,
you create the solutions, that's what gives access. But what the system is doing for a lot of people, the system is telling people you can't because you're black. You can't because you're female. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create some other programs for you to just give you a little bit of aid, just give you a little bit of something, so that way you can sustain yourself. And then while everybody else eats. And so what we call systematic oppression. If you want to ask me, systematic oppression is trying to keep you in that oppression so everybody can win. You need to go out there and realize, like, look, you can win. The system that we live in the United States allows every single person that has breath to go out there and do it. It might be harder for others because your family didn't come someplace. It might be harder because you are male, female, whatever it is. But who cares? We live in a system, we work in a system that gives me equal access and equal opportunity as the next guy. So the reason I got access was not because of the color of my skin, it's because of what I did. And I think that's what a lot of people get confused with. So I think this was a great conversation, guys. I appreciate you. Seriously, it's been good. I know I was glad because I got Billy all fired up today.
Hey, Billy went from all smiles to this.
Really hot.
Arms
Really
just
hot.
crossed.
And Honey Williams, I appreciate, even though I get passionate about it, I don't want you to take the, my wife would think I'm yelling instead of arguing, but that's just, it's passion in my voice. Same thing with AJ. And so we respect the dialogue. I think we can have more dialogue like this. I think that's how we improve. That's kind of the topic of this whole discussion was like, look, like, I think the more conversations we have like this, the better we can, get on one page. And she said that she didn't mean to upset Billy.
I'm not upset. They're just teasing me.
No, man. Look, he went from arms crossed to, I'm not upset. Let me open up a little bit.
Oh, so
that's good
yeah,
though.
that's
That's good. People need to hear both sides of the story. This is exactly why why we started this podcast, why we continue to do this podcast, is to have these conversations. We've had people on the podcast and have had these conversations verbally. So we love it.
This is good, y'all. This is good. We should have a guest on in a few weeks. I keep saying that, but obviously schedules keep
I'm working
changing.
on a good guest, actually.
Our guest today was Billy. So
our guest today is
maybe I'll
Billy.
be here next week. I don't know.
So we got a great guest today. Billy was good. Talking to conservative people was interesting. Laugh out loud. Yep. Hey, I am conservative. I will say that. I am more conservative. I grew up very, liberal home, liberal family, but I've over the years become more conservative. But there's a difference between being conservative in your views and being a Republican, or it's a difference of being conservative in your views and being an actual Republican, and vice versa. I like to identify with being conservative, like I am a conservative, but I don't say, Republican, Democrat, or anything. I'm more of an independent than anything because that gives me the freedom to vote on the decisions that align most with what I agree with.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I've said this before, I think politics becomes very divisive because if you're a Democrat, not listening to you. If you're a Republican, definitely not listening to you. So I try to find that place in the middle so that way I can make my decisions based on the issues and not the person.
There you go.
All right. With that being said, we love y'all. Continue to give us likes. Share this with everybody. Dang, we got Billy. We got the little outro music today. I forgot. Look at that face, though. Anyways, y'all, we love y'all. Do us a favor. Leave us a like. Leave us a comment. With that, we'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Savage on the set. Oh no, it's the Bobo Ryan Tillman. Let him have it. Savage on the set. AJ, what up, boy? Ryan Tillman.